thank you very much for your time. It's fantastic to be here at AI Rush. And first, I want to say thank you to the organizers, and thank you to our panelists for joining us. We've already done some of the introductions, so perhaps we can start first with a little bit of the introduction. I'd love to level set the audience on a little bit of your company, your role, but also very importantly, how your company is related to the world of AI. I want to make sure that everybody in the audience has that level set. So perhaps we can start with Nikolay from Revolut.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Nikolay. I'm from Revolut. So I'm head of ML engineering as of now, but I started as a lead engineer, and AI in Revolut, this is like at the core of our business. All of our products, customer facing, non-customer facing, all of them at some degree, they use technologies in order to improve the products and make sure that we deliver the best possible experience to our customers. So I think from my perspective, what's most important as of now is to mention that we do it everywhere, and we are very keen to learn on how we can improve ourselves and do and make it better.
Quick show of hands here. How many people in the room have used Revolut? All right, that's a pretty high number. I'm going to say 80% of the room raised their hand for anybody on video. You, how about yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how your organization works with AI.
Yeah, okay. So, but I think I'm the only one in the panel use Revolut, right? I raised hand. So 20%.
I do too.
Oh, yes. Just kidding. Yeah. So, from the profile said I'm associated with two companies, but actually, I'm full-time. I'm a professor in University of Surrey, and associate vice president for the university. We rank #1 in the country in artificial intelligence. We have the largest AI team in the UK, also very top in the world. We have helped many companies like Stability, like many companies recently, like Sony, PlayStation. So we have our students and the teachers working with them, like Adobe. But for today, because we talk about the cloud, it's because I'm in position of two companies. One is called Datasection. So this company is the listed company in Tokyo Exchange for 8 years. And the largest shareholder is KDDI, the state-owned telecom company in Japan. And so this company, we have access to GB200. So I know that you heard of the name, but most of you, 99% of you, maybe haven't touched it, but our company have access to it. So basically, our company working with the government, and we have get strong support from US, European Union, and Japan. So we have 3 directors of my company. So #1 director is Jeb Bush, the presidential family for US. The other director is Pablo Casado, who was the ex-president of People's Party, the largest political party in Spain. And now he resigned and running this company with me and the team. And another one is Nori Ashihara. So Ashihara family is a top family in Japan. They own Tokyo Marine. So basically, we align all the resources together. So we negotiate with Jason Huang, and then we run the cloud service of GB200. Now we work with Stability AI, like many other, like Alibaba Cloud and the Tencent Cloud. But we navigate, because we have a top connection, we navigate between geopolitics, because the cloud and the AI computing power, it's something become weaponized in this complicated scenario. Sorry, that's I may talk about it later. Yeah.
So Alex, level set. Where in the AI spectrum do you come from?
Hi everyone, I'm Alex. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 2501. So in a nutshell, we build and deploy AI agent. I could have been on the panel before. Into the IT infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure of our customers that are mainly enterprise customers that are like facing, incident management, large-scale demands. Basically, we try to avoid that someone will wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning on Saturday to fix a fucking server. This is something that happens still a lot, and we try to make that more seamless with AI. So we are the crosswind between enterprise software and also cloud management, because our customers are basically hybrid cloud users.
Fantastic. Christian?
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm field CTO at Cloudflare. So at risk of getting upset with Revolut here. Any Cloudflare customers in the room? Awesome. Well, there'll be plenty of sort of Cloudflare customers that you don't know, your Cloudflare customers indirectly, so including with Revolut. So in terms of Cloudflare, we protect about 20% of the world's internet every day, which for those who are geeky, that's roughly about 70 million HTTP requests a second. So we're protecting you as consumers and other companies from bad stuff happening on the internet. A lot of what we do there in the core products is ML powered. So you can imagine we talk about data a lot when it comes to AI. So think about all that traffic that we process every day. We see a lot of bad things, and that helps us clearly to make our security products a lot better. So that's kind of one part of the AI world. The second part is really around what we call our Workers AI platform. So recognizing very early on that when you train models, it's very, very compute GPU intensive. We chose a slightly different path to go for inferencing as a service. So at all our Cloudflare locations around the world, by the end of this year, you will be able to use our inferencing as a service if you are indeed developing the next generation of AI-enabled applications. And then the third part is really around our developer platform. And in that platform, we have the capability to allow you to create, very, very simply create, should I say, the next generation of AI-enabled apps. We have about 50 different models that you can literally, with one piece of code, one line of code, just select one of those 50 models to kind of get you up and running. And then at the side of those, we have a suite of security tools that actually protect the APIs and the applications that you build as part of the AI-enabled app. So think about things like sort of prompt validation that we've heard about, making sure that what goes in and what comes out of the LLMs is what you expect. So that's kind of the three things that we're doing from Cloudflare AI.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about enterprise transformation and some of the early wins that you've seen either in your organizations or with some of your customers. The promises of AI are huge. We've heard them throughout the day. We've heard them in the press. We've heard them everywhere. I once talked to a CFO who told me that he only approved IT spend when it helped him make more money, when it helped him save money, or when it helped him make customers happier. So I'm curious, from your different vantage points, where have you seen some early wins that you're proud of within your organization? Maybe we can start the other way around. We'll start with Christian.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that we do internally, most of which are in the service of customers. So it's not really that we talk about, hey, you know, we did this, we did that. It's a really complex landscape internally. But to give you maybe the customer inbound view, I would say there's a few things that we see kind of over and over again. The first one is that the majority of use of Gen AI tools today is really in what I would call the intrinsic AI, and I've talked about this a lot. And by that, I mean, if anybody's a Microsoft customer, anybody's a Google customer, there's a fair chance that you're using Copilot, Gemini. That's very, very common, and most organizations are looking to that to drive individual productivity. So again, probably no great surprise there. The second thing I would say is that most organizations are very, very early in the kicking the tires phase. And what's come before the technology is an understanding of the guardrails that need to be put in place to actually enable that. There have been some really interesting horror stories, I'm sure you may have seen some of them in the press, of people using OpenAI and other kind of, let's say, widely available generative AI tools, and then uploading intellectual property and private company data into those tools. For the avoidance of doubt, that's not a great idea. So let me just be really clear on that. It happened with a big technology manufacturer. One of their engineers uploaded the source code. And then, of course, as a result of OpenAI being what it is, through the APIs that you can use, that becomes publicly available. Again, not a great idea. So I would say there's a lot of caution out there when it comes to Gen AI. There's lots of examples of organizations who are sort of stepping into that. And I would say at the moment, it's very departmental. So very rarely do we see organizations using this widely across the board. It's very much sort of departmental data. There's a very cautious approach to it. And in fact, I would say the most use cases that we see are actually in small language models, not large language models. And those SLMs are represented in that departmental data, with organizations just getting familiar with how the tooling works, what the risks are, and putting the right policies, guardrails, permitted usage concepts in place, both from a written policy and also from a technology framework.
Alex, some wins that you've seen with your customers?
So I would say that there is two things. There is the usage and how the organization approach the decision about AI. So first, Yeah, it's still very early. We're in the very early days of the usage. You have like low-hanging fruits, okay, AI in customer service and stuff that might be super easy to get, where I would say that it's still a bottom-up decision. It's easy to get in. We can POC very fast. It's kind of stuff that we can master. But also you have like, for the first time in a very long time in tech, the sales pipeline that is going a bit also top-down related. It's not anymore, I'm selling technical stuff. I'm selling AI agent in IT. Usually my decision maker is the IT engineering ops manager or something. It's not like that I'm selling my business because my product is top-down approved. And so we see for the first time like CFOs, CIOs, CDOs, really early in the loop of the decision because there is not only a change of performance, but a fundamental change of the organization, how the data is approached, how we like welcome this AI process in the next generation of enterprise software. So it's the first time we see like this involvement of the executive committees and people like that are thinking, wow, my business is changing. How do I like welcome AI? Or I protect myself also, et cetera, et cetera. And this is affecting the usage of it because in the end also, we have like usage that are like way more profound in the transformation of the enterprise organization that will also make AI a long-term topic. It's not anymore just, I don't think we're like seeing a wave of a trend. No, it's a bit more profound. And so for us, it's changing fundamentally how we manage IT infrastructure, but also the way we sell it, the way we speak with our customers, it's completely different than what I've seen in the last 15 years doing tech.
It's not just a practitioner-focused purchase,
yeah,
but a CEO or an executive level or board level sales process. It sounds like
basically, yeah.
Absolutely. You've worked with many major organizations. What are some of the wins that you've seen, or the early wins that you've seen in enterprise transformation through AI?
Yes, actually, yesterday I was in University of Oxford. I'm giving the Vice Chancellor Award for innovation for highly commended. So basically, so I'm in a research group that focus on using the AI. I think in last panel, one panel member mentioned about the use it for due diligence. Actually, we created a platform called Ox Value. So we use AI to collect information online and also use AI to provide analytics and then provide recommendations. Plus, we have our own algorithm so that we can get more accurate information about how much this company may worth. We can evaluate any technologies like healthcare, AI, blockchain. So all the technology come to us, and then we will give you a recommendation. We also win a breakthrough award for Falling Wall as one of the major awards in the European Union. So basically, we generate about £500,000 revenue in the past year, and win so many awards, and now valuation 20 million. So because we just started with only 8 people, yeah, and only this week we get another £2 million investment. But anyway, so just one example about how we use generative AI. So we are happy to pay any cloud usage and all other resources that is needed. Yeah, we even want to buy more H200 or even GB200, which is not available now. And this is one use case, and that's I co-founded that company with Oxford University. So I co-founded another company with the University of Surrey, which my full-time work for. So this company called Keys.ai, actually we use generative AI for a platform to mark student assignment and provide assessment feedbacks. And we started getting money. We work with 40 universities globally, and we provide new, our own invented system plus generative AI capability. And also we generated about 200,000 income. So this is just some examples that we actually use generative AI technology making money, yeah? And it's always a university. And of course, I mentioned earlier that for that title in the introduction that for the data section. So that's hardware. The two cases about software, but for the hardware part, so we basically work, as I said, that we work with our client and also working with Giga, Inventec, and we stream all the server supply. They all have one partner, which is Datasection, which is my company, where I'm chief scientist. So basically, we deploy the cloud system for companies. Many companies, they don't have the knowledge. We mentor them from beginning because especially GB200 is a totally different setup process. And it's more complicated using, and also the cloud system on top of it, it's very complicated, like using CUDA programming, yeah. So this is, but anyway, so I think it's profitable. And another company I want to mention, also I'm an advisor to the board, called MiFi. I think this is beneficial for you because I want to mention this. I'm the chief rep for this company. It's a Taiwanese company, JV with an Indian company. Taiwanese company called Phison. They create a memory card, but they create a new card that can accelerate your cloud resources by 10 times, which means that originally you need a 10 H200, but with a MiFi card, you only need 1 plus this card, so that maybe close to our later discussion about in future, I feel the edge computing and all this will become very low cost because of all the technology.
Nikolay, early wins that you're seeing?
A lot. I think the most important for us.
Pick a couple.
Okay.
All right. We don't.
Yeah, I think I can generalize it. So the big win for us, I think in the beginning was realization that using the GenAI, we can decrease the iteration cycle when we develop our products. So how it looked in the past, right? You have a data science team. They spend some time developing a model. After that, you need to train this model, et cetera, et cetera. And effectively, we spend too much time working on the technical implementation, which is not very interesting, I mean, to the end customers, right? And we spend the same amount of time which we spend now for the products themselves, right? So when we started to use GenAI, it was very, very important for us to make sure that our product teams, they can work without any data scientists in the end, right? And what it meant for us, we removed the cycle which is related to the model development, right? And we started to use foundational models which were developed to the cloud. And because of that, we significantly improve our speed, our time to market in the end, right? And I think the second thing which I wanted to mention, Alonso, a couple of things, right? The second one, traditionally, when we speak about the GenAI, this is more about the text data, and back then it was natural language processing. There are a couple of traditional tasks that are solved with that. This is machine translation, this is named entity recognition, classification. And all of them, this is about, in majority of cases, what we do when we support our customers. So when you come to any support system, right, what you need to do, you need to ask a question, and GenAI is excellent in, compression of the information, finding and answering to a question. So that was a huge win, and that was great. The second problem which we solved, machine translation, right? Revolut operates in many markets, and we have many customers who speak different languages. When we work on our products, usually we prepare our documentation in one main language, which is English, right? But imagine you need to translate this documentation and provide answers to customers who are in Japan. I mean, for me, I'm not a Japanese speaker, right? It's super hard to understand what's going on. And in GenAI, this is like an enabler for such cases. So as of now, I'm very proud. We provide 24/7 support for each of our customers around the world. So you can ask questions in any language you want, right? And you can receive a relevant and reliable answer.
You mentioned time to market and the speed of execution that you're able to do this.
Yes.
Give us a sense of scale. And I realize that there is no standard project, so projects vary by time, but what is the magnitude of that speed of execution that you were able to accelerate? Is it 50%? Is it 10%? What are we talking about?
I can give you a very simple example. So back then, it was necessary to have a data scientist on the board, right, in the team who will kind of work on this model and kind of prepare this model to be productionized. So as of now, you don't need a data scientist right in the beginning. You need to involve data science team only later on in the project. So if you have a project, right, and you want to try something on, right, so it's not a problem right now. You just send a request to the API, model behind in the cloud provides you responses, and voila, you have this proof of concept, right, and you start basically providing this service to your customers in the end, and hopefully customers are happy.
Fantastic. So I remember as a kid my father used to work in the National Electric Company in Mexico, and he was in the IT team. And I would go to the mainframe room. So way back when you would buy mainframes, in comes the era of the cloud. We're outsourcing those mainframes out into the world, into somebody else's data center. In come SaaS applications, and you're running all those SaaS applications around the world, whether it's on Google, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's on Cloudflare, whether it's on anybody else. With the power intensity and the compute intensity of these new applications that are coming out and these new needs that are new needs within the world of AI, how is the approach to thinking about cloud deployments changing? Maybe let's start with you, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said a little bit earlier, I think that one of the big elephants in the room is still the training of the model, and if you're lucky enough to be able to get hold of the GPUs, which of course, there's an interesting supply and demand challenge there globally. The next generation of data centers that are going to be heavily GPU enabled are going to require a significant amount more power and cooling than anything we've ever seen before. And you can already kind of see, if you look around what's happening globally, the next generation of data centers are already being built. I came from an engineering and construction background for many, many years and worked on a lot of nuclear capabilities. I wouldn't be at all surprised if, given the complexities of locations of the data centers, there was a theme about 5 or 6 years ago where it went from the kind of sublime to the ridiculous. We're going to build underwater data centers because it's cooler underwater, which is great until you need to send somebody down to change a cable, or just, that's not a great strategy. And then we had, okay, let's go where there's green power, let's put it near hydro, let's put it near wind farms. Again, it doesn't work from an economic perspective. So I think what we'll see in the very short term is data centers that are powered by small modular reactors. So no need to be worried about that. They're incredibly safe. They're incredibly efficient. So I think what we're going to see is the next generation of data centers that have this super high demand for, if you think about traditionally, we had hot aisle, cold aisle, if you're familiar with that, and we used to pay by the kilowatt and we used to pay by the rack. All of that's going to change significantly because the density and the requirements to heat and cool that are going to be so significantly different that I think we're actually going to see many more data centers, many more modular data centers, and hopefully powered by significantly greener energy, which of course nuclear is a key part of.
Alex, you're working with a lot of enterprise customers. How are you thinking, is there anything different that you have to think about with AI deployments than maybe you did 5, 6 years ago when you're working on other technologies?
So first, I say we started with deploying as maximum GPU everywhere. This was a bit like the trend. Everyone was buying H100, blah, blah, blah. Right. And it was a bit the race to GPU. It still is a bit. But now the offer is a bit like, OK, we have enough GPU to sustain for several years. Now, what is the usage? And this is the thing. And so now what we're seeing is that there is actually different usage that requires different type of GPU. If you train an AI from scratch, you don't need as much GPU as, you need more GPU as if you are like just doing autocomplete. For example, if you are Mistral and you are deploying your auto-completion in a Doctolib Health application, you don't need like a 6 billion parameters engine. You need something like, I don't know, 30B, 70B maximum. So we are seeing, I think, a shift where AI will be deployed depending on the usage of it. And we were speaking about SML before, like small models, small SLM, small language models that are like not needing that much GPU. Some of them can also run on CPU base. So how do we approach that? How do we deploy inferences that are like fitting the need of the customer? How do we deploy at different locations in the world also? CDN of AI. This is a big topic right now. Essentially, GPU is in the US, a bit in Europe, but elsewhere, what happened? So yeah, I think we are seeing like different usage, different needs, and the workload in the cloud, the workload in the customers will be different based on what they will do. For example, we had, just to end this, one customer that says, okay, I want this level of performance in our agentic resolution of incidents. And so we were telling them, okay, but we need a 600 billion parameter GPU. AI, otherwise it doesn't work. It's not intelligent enough to do the task. And they were, okay, so how can we do that? You need to pay. And so there is the thing, finally we were like approaching the problem with, okay, maybe 10% less average performance is good, and we can reduce the size of the AI by XYZ, and this will be acceptable for the customer. So we need now to understand what size for what usage.
Right.
Yeah, I think maybe just to kind of add to that a little bit, Alex. Anybody familiar with DeepSeek? Yeah. So it was interesting because what we do as technologists and engineers, we always build for scale and we build for peak. And that is a great idea until you can't do it. And if you know the backstory to what happened with DeepSeek, they were actually constrained by the capacity that they had. And so instead of trying to go and broker additional capacity and build for that peak, they kind of said, hey, you know what, we'll engineer this a different way. So I think we're going to see those same trends. You know, there's a very defined and originally a very defined way that we kept scaling out the number of parameters, and that number of parameters would equal GPU cycle time and whatever. But if you actually look at what DeepSeek did, it was genius. And so you think about, okay, so maybe there won't be another DeepSeek tomorrow, maybe there won't be one the day after, quite possibly. But I think to Alex's point, you know, when it comes to being able to run, you know, AI on your Intel CPU or your AMD CPU or the Snapdragon in your phone, you're not going to be able to carry a data center around with you, right? So we're going to see a combination of those small language models, the larger things that happen, and it will be a case of using the right technology at the right time where the capacity is available.
Let's talk a little bit about security and trust. You know, if we were on this same panel maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there would have been a big conversation about security and trust as it relates to cloud, on-premise, large traditional organization wanting to have an on-premise deployment of their applications for security and trust reasons. That, you know, as time went by, that reduced a little bit. Now in the world of thinking about security and trust from an AI perspective, Nikolay, how has your perspective changed? What are you thinking about now that you weren't before as you're building?
I think now we are more focused on the risks. We start with the risks, right? So when we have a product or any deployment, right, the number one question, what can be, or what could go wrong? So once we have these answers, any scenarios, right, we start backwards and we start wiring these risks to the measurements, what we can do, how we can mitigate them, how we can avoid them, shall we accept them, shall we transfer them, etc. So effectively, this is kind of the main change, because previously in the past, I believe, usually we started with the regulation. For example, we pick up a document, and after that we start to go one by one through the kind of, you know, checklist, and we take what could be kind of relevant to this specific item. But now, given that GenAI gives you so much opportunities, right? So there are so many things they can go wrong, right? And instead of kind of looking at the document in the first place, I find that as of now, the best option is to start kind of with the product and start thinking about edge cases, right? So what might be wrong? So this is what changed. This is where we start usually now.
Got it. Are there some things that you're thinking now as you're deploying AI with your customers or in the university that you weren't thinking about before from a security or a trust perspective?
Yeah, of course. So we, for example, our university just working with a company that provide post-quantum resilience system to protect our data center. You know, so because in AI, so now the attack is more smart. So, but anyway, so we think that in future the centralized cloud and your personalized cloud will be two parts. So personalized is edge computing, so that you may not need to upload your data and the system online, so you can keep your private data with your hand. Under this, your personalized data center will be very powerful. As I said, that the company I'm working with, MiFi, they come 10 times the GPU power. You know, so you can just use a very limited resource. You can deploy a very powerful facility that you can train your own language model. So in future, we also think that in centralized cloud, it will also have overall very high, just like post-quantum, all these technologies. But then there will be a clear gap, a clear divide of these two. So everybody will have a mobile data center with yourself. And also in future, I do think that because of the cost of power reduced, we will have another landscape. We can access the computing power just like drinking water, tap water. You know, so it's very cheap. And remember that 20 years ago I started research in cloud computing. At that time, it's not called cloud computing. It's called grid computing. So just like we want to access computing power, like using grid, national grid. So and then after my PhD submitted, then changed to cloud computing. Yeah, but originally we want the computer power to be very low cost and very safe, and everybody have your own system to protect yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to maybe just ask the audience something, because there are a few things that I worry about, genuinely worry about at night when it comes to like what I see coming down the line. And the previous panel talked about agentic and talked about agentic AI, but didn't really get into some of the things around trust and security that kind of terrify me. So let me try something. Has anybody made a genuine mistake at work and had to explain to their boss what happened? Oh, come on, we're all friends, right? So, okay. This is the more difficult question. Has anybody ever made a deliberate mistake at work and had to answer to their boss?
A deliberate one?
Yeah, see, we never get any hands for that question, right? But there we go, right? So, and yet the reason I asked that from a security perspective, you'd be surprised how big the insider threat is really to organizations, from disgruntled employees, from deliberate malice. You would be really shocked at the statistics of how big that is. So that's from humans, where the accountability is really traceable. Now put that into a world where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of software agents or agentic AI instructions running around doing things. What do you do when something goes wrong? Okay, so who's responsible for the outcome of an action of an agent? Because I'm pretty sure I don't know. And if that agent did something accidentally based on not being able to quite parse what it was supposed to do, but did it autonomously with chain of thought and did it to its best endeavors, who do you blame? No, there's no reporting structure in SAP or your HR system for the agent. And then worse still, what happens when the agent does something deliberately? So we talk about poison models, we talk about prompt injection, all those things are kind of well understood. And if you're following along with what's happening with OWASP, you'll know that started life as the OWASP top 10 for web apps, then it moved to APIs. There's now an OWASP top 10 for LLMs, but it's really fundamental. I look a year out, 2 years out, 3 years out, when Alex is successful and spawns all these agents that come from his company. I'm really worried about the responsibility model for that. So maybe, Alex, you can answer that for us.
And that's a super topic, because everyone asks, this is the first question, what is happening if the AI does something that is not expected? So first, this is based on the infrastructure itself. We will see a lot of AI implementation that will be fully clusterized on-prem, that will not happen in the cloud of, I don't believe that we're going to use OpenAI APIs, we're going to use like Anthropic APIs for like enterprise usage. First, you don't want your personal data to go from here to there outside of the network, inside a model that is shared with other customers. It's not something that you will share as a tenant. You need infrastructure that will be dedicated to you. So this is increasing also cost. This is creating a new need. If you want AI to perform securely, you need AI to be dedicated to you. And so we are creating new lines of spendings in AWS, in Azure, about having a model that will be dedicated for each customer or for each subtenant, for example, for our customers. This is necessary. But this is also something that is measurable. We can measure also for example, internally, what we do when we deploy a customer. We have a phase one where we measure what we call pollution and destruction. And so we run for example, we run 10 scenarios of incidents of demands that can upgrade your GPU size of whatever machine, virtual machine that is on the server, or this website is down, how can the AI fix it, etc., etc. And we run them thousands of times during 2 months. We run them with different models, with Mistral, with Llama, with DeepSeek, whatever it is. And at the point, in the end, we're showing to the customer, look, this is XYZ model, and each model has a difference of performance. Each model has done XYZ pollution rate, XYZ destruction rate, and this is the most trustworthy model. This is the most trustworthy configuration. We cannot, unfortunately, give 100% reliability on the provider because the AI model is not from our factor. But in the end, there is a way we can measure it. And this is interesting because our customers think that in the end, there will be less problem with AI than with human. And a lot of them, it's a bit like something that could cause polemics here. But a lot of CEOs and CIOs of companies we speak with were like, no, human is making mistakes, always. In the end, on thousands and thousands and thousands of tasks, will the AI make so much mistakes? And this is something we try to measure in the years to come.
Nikolay, you want to jump in?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, actually, Alex, which you raised, right? And I wanted to share maybe one insight which was useful, at least in our scenarios, right? So we divided all of the risks and what could be potentially wrong, right, in several groups. So the first one, the first group, this is about when it could happen, before deployment or after deployment, right? So different scenarios and different mitigation strategies for these cases, right? So the second group, what's that about? Is it a human mistake? I mean, somebody kind of, I mean, you and me or somebody else, right, kind of makes a mistake, or is it like an AI mistake? So again, different mitigation strategies, because if you're speaking about the AI, is it about, again, pre-training process, post-training process, before deployment, after deployment? And I think the second group and the third, sorry, the first group and the second group together, right? So they provide you like a matrix which you after that use to build your guardrails, and they might be different, right? So some of them involve like human support teams, for example. Some of them can be automated, and yeah, I think this is very useful actually. And yeah, so that's my take.
In terms of security and privacy, I'm curious. I'm sure near 100% of the room uses ChatGPT on a regular basis. But here's the question. Raise your hand if you have gone into the settings and opted into not feeding your information to the model. Okay, I'm going to say about a third of the room. So something to look out for in your personal usage on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure that we leave some room for questions. But before we do that, I want to do a rapid Q&A round. So this is a yes or no, max one sentence answer. Let's start with a topic that we already talked about during the conversation today. We talked about whose responsibility it could be when AI makes mistakes. In that vein, by 2027, we'll see an AI-related fine of over $1 billion.
At 100% we will.
Yes.
2028, maybe.
Okay.
I think yes.
Yes, because EU AI Act, right, 7% of the global turnover for the company. There are many companies who have already more than 100 billion turnover.
We were talking about orchestration, we were talking about clouds, we were talking about AI coming on premise. So companies will start pulling AI workloads off the major public clouds by 2026. Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, when we've got a clear definition of what edge computing really means, because if you ask 100 people today, you'll get 101 answers.
They will, but inside cloud-dedicated spaces.
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah.
Yes, because of the privacy.
We talked about productivity and time to market. Another concern sometimes is how headcount is affected by AI. AI will shrink your customer service team in the next 12 months.
No, because we'll have more people building things on Cloudflare, so we'll need to support them more.
Sorry to say that, but if my company works, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No. Perfect. All right. Wanted to make sure we had some room for questions. So do we have microphones for the questions, or should we just say them out loud? Oh, all right. We're going to have to say it out loud then.
Okay, quick question. Should artificial general intelligence be allowed, or agents be allowed to run defense systems?
Should agents be allowed to run defense systems? Anybody want to jump in here?
I would say they probably already are.
There is,
Unofficially, right?
yeah.
Unofficially saying they probably already are.
In what capacities?
Well, if you're not talking about cyber defense systems, right? We're talking about real defense systems. Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the manufacturers there, British Aerospace, Raytheon, you know, they invest millions and millions in technology, and I would find it very hard to believe that things like the old Star Wars missile defense system are not already being significantly AI-enabled.
Look at Palantir AI demo that was released a few months ago. Their UI is exactly that. It's how modern warfare is decided by AI in the future. I'm not sure they have a lot of production workloads yet, but this is where we go.
But do you think the controls are right for it?
Not 100% sure and clear.
Yeah, I want to comment that last week we just saw the AI fighting. Without India and Pakistan, without the pilots see each other, they already start fight. Yeah. So because of AI is behind, so AI can judge when to fire and who to fire, where to fire. Yeah.
We had a question over here in the front.
Yeah, we talk about privacy, you talk about security, and now these days are these new frameworks or protocols like agent-to-agent, MCP, where probably they will lean towards a system where a community and agents interact with each other, right? So what do you think about that, how that will work, and how companies will
I can take a very quick swing at it. So the question is about things like MCP, A2A, whatever the IBM version of MCP was called. It escapes me. There's another 3-letter acronym. I would say there's a famous phrase that says those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it, right? And there was a famous phrase from Vint Cerf, who was the godfather of TCP/IP, who said, if I could have my time again, I would have included authentication inside of TCP. Now we release a protocol that's half-baked and half-ready called MCP, which has absolutely no authentication or authorization built into it. The problem with that is that when you're an agent talking to third-party systems using the MCP protocol, that's great, but not if you can get access that you shouldn't have, which is kind of where we are at the moment with it. So there's a big attempt now to retrofit like OAuth and OIDC and other sort of basic authentication authorization stuff into it. That's the danger of going as fast as we're going, because if you think about system-to-system access without granular authorization, then in an agentic world, you're kind of asking for trouble.
But also in agentic world, this is funny because agent-to-agent conversation is dangerous per se, because you can have drifts and hallucinations, especially if you have like model poisoning or stuff like that could happen in one agent and not the other. But also we use agent-to-agent conversation to also secure the things. For example, in our system, we use different LLMs that will play what we call LLM as a judge scenario, where the LLM number 2 or 3 will have to be different from the LLM number 1 or 2 to judge if the output is correct and if there is no problem of security, etc., etc. So you can implement in both ways. It's both dangerous and useful.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Just one comment. I agree with all the comments. So we as a University of Surrey, as I run also Academy for Blockchain and Metaverse, we launched our AI and Web3 framework, variant framework. And then a company come to us, and then we develop the technology based on framework that we track AI's activities on blockchain, because that we want to know which data this AI used and who is using this AI and what the AI is doing or about to do. So this is our framework. And we launched our protocol. Then after collaborating with this company, we just raised $110 million. Called Endless Protocol. It's one of the 11 unicorn we created in March globally. So basically, I think that's very much in demand. So we use the Web3 blockchain protocol to track the AI behaviors. Yeah.
Perfect. I know that we're out of time. I'm looking at the back. Time for more questions. Are we done?
One last one, if there is.
One last one, if we have it. Over here on my right.
I have a question for Alexandre. In terms of, like, you mentioned about on-premise running for your customer. Why would you have to be on-premise for a server, like GPU-wise? And how do you explain the cost for running AI with you, as you mentioned, to your customer?
So this is the main scenario. This is the base of our pricing model. This is how we consider our customer using full secure on-prem, Secnum cloud, EU secure cloud compatible infrastructure. In this way, yes, the customer have to bear the costs of the AI itself. So the choice of the GPU is in collaboration between us and the customer and the managed services provider, the cloud provider, or the end customer if we play with the end customer directly. Or if we are like playing as a SaaS, we will do this interface between the inference and we will have free choice, or sometimes we have to dedicate some dedicated instances in this case. But mostly on enterprise, this will be borne by the customer, yeah. And this is also mandatory because otherwise we cannot be full secure in their infrastructure. So we don't have choice anyway.
All right. Well, we're out of time. To our panelists, thank you very much. Could we give them a round of applause, please? Thank you. And we're on to the next panel. Thank you to the audience.